Today we are going to be securing our remote server access via Multi Factor Authentication. The authentication we have chosen is Google Authenticator. In the first step, we have to enter the SSH configuration file. Before we actually edit the file, we need to make sure that we back up the SSH, because if we have an error, we can have a backup just in case, because if you don't have a backup, the whole server will not be working. So to do this, you need to do sudo cp-etc-ssh-sshd install config-etc-sshd-sshd_config.bak. This will ensure that our SSH is backed up and working. But then after we've done a backup, we can actually enter the SSH file and edit. To do this, you need to do sudo nano/etc/ssh/sshd_config. This will allow us to enter this file and edit. In the next step, we need to go through the file until we find challenge response authentication. When you find it, it should display no. However, we need to make it to be enabled, so you need to change the no to yes. Once done, just keep scrolling down until you go to the next steps where it says example of override settings on a per basis. In this step, we need to add the following statement to the bottom of this page. In this image, we can see that the following statement has been added. Authentication methods, public key, keyboard interactive. This is basically telling the server that it needs to go through these methods to allow before they can allow us to enter. In the next step, we have logged out of our account, but you need to log it back in. This is just a safety measure to see if everything's working and there's no error occurred. If an error does occur, you need to make sure you backed up to the original SSH and start again. I can see we have logged in and we have encountered no errors. In the next image, we have actually updated our server. We updated our server using sudo apt-get update. This is because we want to make sure that our server is fully updated and there's going to be no problems when we're trying to install the authentication app. In the next step, we are actually starting to process of installing. We have installed Google PAM module. This is allowing us to actually use the Google Authenticator. To do this, you need to enter sudo apt-get install libpam-google-authenticator. As you can see, we've used this command here, and it's doing the process of downloading. Once this has occurred, you need to enter Google-authenticator. As you can see here, this will bring up the following questions you have to accept by pressing yes. Then you have a QR code. Make sure you save this QR code, as this is what we're going to be using to get our authentication codes. Below the authentication codes, we will have some emergency codes. Make sure you take a copy of this, as you can use these emergency codes to log in just in case you lost your authentication code. After the next step, it will ask us a couple of questions. In the image, you need to follow the answers. So we start with the Y, N, Y. This is just the basic instructions where it gives us time limit on what codes, and it gives us time and how long we can stay on the page until it closes itself. In this next image, we have entered the Google Authentication nano file once again, because we need to enter a couple more statements. Go through the file to find standard Unix password updating. This is where you have to enter the following two statements, as we can see here. In the next statement, we are going through the file till we see example for override setting on a per use basis again. We need to make sure we have added the statements we added earlier. So it needs to make sure we have entered authentication methods, public key, password, public key, keyboard interactive. This is because it's telling us SSH. What authentication methods are required before they log in. You need to make sure you have this set properly. In the next step, you will have to log out, but this time when you log in, you enter your account with the private key and the password. However, as soon as you enter the password, you should get the bit where it tells you the verification code. To get the verification code, you need to make sure that you scan the QR code you saved using an authentication app. Once you've scanned it, you should have the IP address up. Once you have the IP address, you have to make sure that you have saved it as the name of the user, and a code will appear. You have to enter the 6-digit code after the verification code, and if you've done correctly, it will allow you in. As you can see here in this image, we're able to see that Google Authentication have worked and it allowed me access. Thank you for listening, and I hope this will be useful for VDS.